Hey, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Michael Brown Unplugged. Glad to have you with me. Let's get started. You may have seen this story. I think it was on the Drudge Report on Monday or Tuesday, but it talks about how many people around the world are beginning to lose their patience. Not me. I'm the most patient person ever. The story goes somewhat like this, that patience, of course, is a virtue. Patience is not one of my virtues. But they point out that it's becoming an exceedingly rare quality in modern society. So they did this study of 2,000 British adults, and they say that all of the luxuries of modern life have made most people incredibly impatient across pretty much every aspect of their lives. 75% of those that were surveyed said they believe the dominance of digital technology, smartphones, on-demand TVs, Netflix, streaming, all of that, are to blame for this ever-growing lack of patience. I think they're onto something, because I know myself that I was always an impatient person, and I find myself being even more impatient because I want to be careful here, but let's just say that I've been trying to help somebody correct something that they messed up something on their computer. Let's put it that way. And so via long distance, I've been trying to help them fix that problem. And I find myself getting so frustrated because I can't get them to, and look, I'm probably as much at fault as the person on the other end of the phone, but I can't get them to do what I'm asking them to do. And I have no patience for that. And I think I get frustrated because it's such an easy fix that if I just had their laptop or their iPad or their iPhone in front of me, I could literally, and I use the word literally, I could literally fix it in 60 seconds. That's about what it would take me to fix it. But because I can't do it that way, I don't have the patience to, well, actually, I tried again yesterday, and I said, okay, so let's go through these steps. And I said, write down these, we're going to go through these steps, and I want you to write down the steps so that as I tell you we're going to do this, and this, we've already talked about the steps we're going to go through to try to fix the problem. And I was so proud of myself because I thought, isn't this great? This is how a teacher should do it. A teacher should show, here's today's lesson. And in today, this is the same thing as giving a speech too. What do? You tell them what you're going to tell them. You tell them why you're going to tell them that. And then you tell them why you told it. And then you tell them again what you told them. And so I was kind of going through that same process of explaining, here are the steps we're going to go through. And I want you to write the steps down so that we can talk about these steps. If you have any questions about them, and I know it's hard to visualize, particularly on a computer, because if I'm saying that a window's going to pop up that's going to ask you X. And when that happens, we're going to do Y. Well, if you're a visual learner, you can't really comprehend that until you actually see it. But long story short, I go through that process yesterday, and lo and behold, at the end of it, it didn't work. And I finally just gave up. And I finally said that, if you want me to fix it, you're going to have to pack it up, go to a FedEx shipping place and have it packed up, wrapped up in bubble wrap, and send it to me, and I'll do it here, and then I'll send it back. I think that if somebody asked me about my patience, it would be, I don't have any. So in this story, they talk about the people they surveyed report that they get frustrated after just 16 seconds of waiting for a web page to load. And when I read that, I thought, wow, that really is impatient. And then I thought to myself, 16 seconds? Who wants to wait 16 seconds for something to happen? And I thought, okay, let's time it. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000, 6 1,000, 7 1,000, 8 1,000, 9 1,000, 10 1,000, 11 1,000, 12 1,000, 13 1,000, 14 1,000, 15 1,000, 16 1,000. 16 seconds. If you were trying to load a web page and it didn't load in those 16 seconds, I know 16 seconds, when you hear that, you think to yourself, well, that's not very much time. I'll wait 16 seconds. I want you to take your phone, your watch, whatever it is, and I want you to actually count out 16 seconds like I did. The next question that was asked, the respondent said that they become frustrated after 25 seconds of waiting for a traffic light to change. I become frustrated after about 5 seconds. The survey says that 38% of respondents lost their patience while trying to take notes and keep up with a speaker during a class or a work meeting. The last time I taught law school, it was fascinating to me because every student in the class, I was teaching a class at the University of Denver Law School on the Patriot Act. And I thought, I came in with this syllabus and everything that we're going to do and study, and I never even thought about the fact that they would have all of the materials available online. So I didn't revamp the syllabus. I just said, okay, instead of looking at the syllabus, you can keep that, but tomorrow, or whatever the next class date was, I'm going to come in, I'm going to provide hyperlinks to every single thing that I'm going to be referring to during the course of this class. Because if they can look at, it's like having a textbook, except now the laptop has replaced the textbook. If you can follow along with what I'm talking about on your laptop, now you're going to hear it, you're going to see it, you're going to read it, and I think teaching is much more effective with modern tools if you know how to use them. I think part of the problem that we have did I ever tell you about the time that I'm driving down I-25? I'm southbound on I-25 for those of you not in Colorado, I-25 is the main north-south artery between, north and from, Albuquerque all the way north to Wyoming and beyond. And I-25 goes right through the middle of Denver. But where it gets to Colorado Boulevard, south of downtown, it makes a turn where it goes almost due east or due west, depending on whether you're northbound or southbound. And I remember taking that curve southbound, so I was facing east, when I came upon an accident. There was an accident that was blocking the right two lanes. So, and it's like, I forget, it was like fall. This has been maybe a couple of years ago. It was fall. It was nice out. I rolled the windows down because traffic had slowed to a crawl. So I put my blinker on to start merging into the next available lane to my left. And I see a guy behind me, and he's far enough behind me that I move in. He didn't need to tap his brakes or do anything, but it pissed him off. And he swerved into the lane number one. My windows rolled down. He pulls up beside me. This is why you should always conceal carry. He pulls up beside me. I happen to glance over, and I'm thinking, what's this goober going to do? And you know what he did? I was waiting for him to pull a gun because I was trying to figure out whether the gun hit my brakes, pull my gun, whatever was going to go on. He took an almost completely full water bottle, reached over and threw it at me through my window, and hit me in the head with it. My response, for one of the first times in my life, my response was, this guy's nuts. Stay back. Because normally, let's get it on, bucko. But I didn't. But I think when you think about the incompetence of most drivers, and you think about the traffic jams that we now have, particularly, I say in Colorado, and I know that my friend in Oklahoma that's listening to this right now is going to laugh. He complains about the traffic in Oklahoma, and I go to Oklahoma and I laugh about his complaints about the traffic. And when I go to D.C., people in D.C. laugh about me complaining about the traffic in Colorado. And so it's all relative. But here's what's not relative. When you're stuck in traffic, whether you're stuck in traffic for 5 blocks or 5 minutes or 15 minutes or 5 hours, whatever it is, we have no patience for that. And I think the more complex society gets, and the more cramped we get into these metropolitan areas, of course people are becoming less and less tolerant. I also think aging is a part of that. Tamara and I were just talking the other day about, we had a really bad experience not a really bad experience, but we had a less than satisfactory experience at a restaurant over the Labor Day weekend. A place that in fact, we ate there with our daughter and son-in-law and granddaughter about 2 weeks ago, and it was really busy, and the service was impeccable. We go in on the Sunday during the Labor Day weekend. There's hardly anybody there. Tamara orders what is their special for the day. I order a burger. Two very non-complex, simple things to slap out and get out to the patrons of the restaurant, particularly considering that Tamara was ordering their regular Sunday special that they have every single Sunday. So it's not like, oh, here we have to bake a turkey from scratch and make the dressing from scratch. No, you've already done all of that. You have to carve it up. You have to maybe warm up the dressing and send it out. And the burger, well, it's a burger. What do you think the appropriate wait time is for that? Not busy. I checked. We waited more than 40 minutes. And when I finally asked for a manager, and when the manager came to us, he brought the food and said, I hear you wanted to see me. And I explained how we had been waiting. And his response was, well, we're just doing the best we can. Almost with that kind of attitude. Well, we're just doing the best we can. Didn't sit well with me at all. I think service suffers. I think the complex, crowded metropolitan areas that we live in. I think, yes, modern technology, the ability to text. Look, don't send me a voicemail. Send me a text. Better yet, don't call me. Yeah, don't call me. And don't leave me a voicemail. Send me a text message. Quicker, easier. Don't have to go through the pleasantries. And I know that sounds awful, but it's just so much more efficient. The story says that oftentimes all it takes is mere seconds of waiting for people to lose their cool. For example, respondents reported losing their temper after just 20 seconds of waiting for ink to dry on a greeting card. And I laughed at that because I thought to myself, a greeting card? You're waiting for the ink to dry? You're using a fountain pen? Seriously? Now, I'm sitting right here and I have a very expensive, nice, was given to me as a gift. I have a very nice Mont Blanc fountain pen. In fact, recently, maybe 2 years ago, I sent it in for servicing and cleaning, and I haven't used it since. It's a fountain pen. It sits very nicely here on my desk with my other pens, but a greeting card? The story continues. Additionally, it only takes 22 seconds for people to start cursing their computers or TVs if a show or movie doesn't immediately start streaming correctly. When they surveyed a bunch of Brits, it showed that they start losing their cool after just 18 seconds of searching for a pen. Really? You don't keep like a drawer or a jar or a cup or something with hundreds of pens in it? Dummies. But I do think we're all becoming more and more impatient. And I don't know, the whole point of this is just to point out that we are. And to ask, well, in fact, I know, for example, at the end of these podcasts, I normally talk about where you can go to get, if you want to join me on social media, or where to find the podcast on iHeart or iTunes and everything else. And I can watch on the podcast on the Apple website where my podcasts are hosted. I can watch exactly where people drop off. So let me tell you now, before we get to the end of this podcast, if you're listening to us on iTunes, it'd be great if you leave a 5-star review, a 5-star rating. It'd also be fantastic if you could leave a short 2-sentence review about why you like the podcast. Or on the iHeart app, if you shared it with somebody, that would be fantastic too. And you know that if you listen to me and you want to follow me on social media, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of that stuff, you can go to the website, michaelbrowntoday.com. See, I did that now instead at the end because I know you're impatient. And quite frankly, I bet some of you even fast-forwarded through that. Didn't you? Yep. You're impatient just like the rest of us. I just want us to recognize how we are impatient, because I know that patience really is a virtue, and I know that I'm not, and you're probably not either. So at least be aware of it. I'll be aware of it, but will I do anything? Probably not. You may or may not have heard that Sadiq Khan, or whatever his name is, the mayor of London. I did an interview Tuesday morning with Stuart Varney on Fox Business News, and he asked me about it. Apparently, the mayor of London is all upset that Donald Trump is, not flying a hurricane plane into the eye of the hurricane. He's on vacation at Bedminster or somewhere, and he went out and played a round of golf. And the mayor says that somehow that's awful. Now, I may agree that I don't agree that it's awful, but I do think we've reached a point in this country where when there's a natural disaster going on, and by the way, it's not really a natural disaster for the United States. Now, it may be by the time this podcast is listened to by you on Wednesday, but at the time that I recorded it, it had not made landfall in Florida, Georgia, or the Carolinas. Now, of course, there are tropical storm winds, there's storm surge, and there's going to be a lot of flooding and stuff. But why is it, with hurricanes in particular, why is it with hurricanes that we somehow expect the president to shut down everything that he's doing, go to the White House, or better yet, I guess, get on Air Force One and, maybe trail the NOAA airplane hurricane hunters that fly into the eye of the hurricane? Let's fly that 747 in, and let's watch the president bouncing around in the office in all the turbulence, because that shows he's really doing something. That shows that he cares. Why do we care? Now, you may remember during Hurricane Katrina, President Bush was out in San Diego playing a guitar, a banjo, doing something. I forget what it was. He was doing at some fundraiser. And he really caught crap for that. And I understand why, because Katrina had already made landfall and we were having problems, but I wasn't having problems communicating with the president. I was simply having problems getting the president to understand just how bad it was, and that I needed him to get the cabinet off their ass and do something. Doesn't mean he had to leave San Diego. Doesn't mean he had to leave Crawford. It does mean at some point, though, he needs to become engaged, which begs the question of when do we expect presidents to physically become engaged in a natural disaster? What is this? What is this thing we have? Of course, it's politics. It's all politics. We want the president, somehow, the commander-in-chief, whose only job is to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. That's his job. Don't believe me? Go read the oath of office. But why is it that we expect the president of the United States, when there's a natural disaster going on? Actually, let me rephrase that. Why is it that we expect the president of the United States, when there is a hurricane going on, that he's to drop everything else? Now, I agree that the president not going to Poland for the commemoration of a World War II event was entirely appropriate. He does need to stay in the country. But what's he supposed to do? I mean, it's not a rhetorical question. What do you think the president should be doing? Should he be tied to the FEMA director? The FEMA director is not even in Florida. Well, he may be by now. But when Katrina was hitting, I wasn't in New Orleans. And people will say, well, that's why it was not handled well. Well, I was actually in Baton Rouge. But the point being, what is it about we want the president to be in the middle or showing somehow that he's involved? He's getting briefed. He gets briefed all the time. We don't see all of these briefings. I think it is, you're going to attack Bush. You're going to attack Trump. You're not going to attack Obama because, well, unless Obama was just outrageously doing something stupid, maybe they would. I don't know. Probably not. But I want you to think, because you're probably going to hear, well, Trump's not paying attention to Hurricane Dorian. My question to you is, knowing that he's getting probably at least once an hour or at least 4 times a day, every 2 or 3 hours, he's getting briefed by the Secretary of Homeland Security. He's getting briefed by the director of FEMA. He's probably getting indirect briefings from the National Hurricane Center. He's probably getting briefed by SOCOM, Southern Command, the military part of DOD. He's getting all of these briefings about everything that's going on. You don't see them. So the real question is, when the media complains or the mayor of London complains about the president's not involved, my serious question to you is, what do you want him to do? And then I want you to think about this. When a tornado strikes and wipes out a small town, or there are wildfires raging in the mountains somewhere, or there's a hurricane, there's an earthquake in California. Remember the earthquake? Now, the president did eventually go out, but should he have flown out the minute the earthquake started trembling? Should he have gone out to Andrews Air Force Base and flown out to California? What is it? Why do we have this really bizarre, almost childlike need to have a parent show us that everything's going to be okay? Don't worry. Now, I do believe that there is a time and a place for the commander-in-chief to reassure the country that here's what we're doing. We're taking steps to protect the nation, to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. The branches of government that need to be involved are doing what they're supposed to be doing. I'll talk to you tomorrow. What is it about this childlike, we need constant reaffirmation by someone who really has nothing to do other than get briefed and find out, are there decisions I need to make? Is everybody getting what they need? Is there something not happening that I can step in and make that happen? Other than that, what? What do you want him for? I don't want him for anything. You know, sooner or later, if you keep electing a bunch of dumbasses on the left who really take global warming and the BS of global warming seriously, the lights are going to go out. Now, in New York, that may be sooner than later. The enviro-fascist governor, Andrew Cuomo, actually blames people who provide energy for the problems caused by his refusal to leave them alone. He has ordered the Department of Public Service to broaden its investigation into the national grid. The utility has stopped taking new gas customers in parts of Long Island, Brooklyn, and Queens where it cannot handle the new demand. Because, why? Well, Governor Cuomo vetoed the proposed Williams pipeline to bring in supplies from New Jersey. If you can't get the supplies there because you wouldn't allow a pipeline to be built, then why are you demanding that, oh, what do you mean you can't take on new gas customers? Well, you see, Governor, we don't have enough supply to provide those customers gas. So we don't want to hook them up. And we know it's wintertime's coming on and they're going to get cold and they'd like to have gas, but you vetoed a pipeline that we needed to build to get that supply to meet the demand. Oh, there's that evil supply and demand phrase again. So months in advance, National Grid warned that there would be a moratorium. Con Edison did the same thing for Westchester County, which is just north of New York City. And they did it for the same reason. They needed the pipelines. But Governor Cuomo wouldn't allow the pipelines because of, I don't know, polar bears or Greta Thunberg or whoever that little twerp is that has gathered all the attention. You know, this just fascinates me. Blocking pipelines, that's really only a small part of the leftist war on energy. Cuomo in particular made a fracking ban permanent back in 2014. He forced the shutdown of Indian Point. Indian Point Power Plant, the nuclear power plant in Westchester County, which provides 25% of New York City's electricity, he is shutting that down starting next year. Now, I've told you the story that Hillary Clinton and Chuck Schumer came to me post 9/11 because they were worried that terrorists might attack Indian Point, and then you'd have this huge nuclear explosion, or you'd have the equivalent of a dirty bomb shutting down Manhattan, and they wanted us to do a study in conjunction with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to see whether or not that was true. So FEMA, working on the outside of the plant, and the NRC working on the inside of the plant, spent all of this time and money doing a study And we came back and said it's safe. Nothing to worry about. And in a meeting in her office, Hillary Clinton told me that she appreciated the study, that she didn't want the nuclear power plant shut down because it does provide 25% of New York City's electricity. And she didn't want to see power rates skyrocket. She didn't want to see blackouts. But she also told me at the same time that she was going to tell me that she opposed the study, thought the study was flawed, and she was going to side with the environmentalists. Okay, fine. Play your politics, but I know the truth, and I know that you know the truth. But now Cuomo's actually done it. In 2015, he pledged to run the state on 50% renewable energy by 2030. Actually, New York lost ground on that front last year. So what did he do? Instead of getting even closer to 50%, they went further behind. So he upped the requirement to 70% by 2030 and 100% by 2040. I don't think it's even conceivable that New York could run on 100% green energy given currently existing technology and the energy requirements. Right now, if National Grid and Con Edison can't meet demand because of lack of a pipeline, how in the hell do you think for demand that exists today that you're going to meet that with renewable energy? You can't. So think about 1977. That was the New York City blackout. Riots raged. There were 1,000 cases of arson. So stand by, because I think, what's that old phrase? Something about history repeats itself? Yep. Get ready. I think we're about to see another blackout. Thanks to Andrew Cuomo. Do you remember, I think this was just last year, I may be wrong, but I think it was last year, at Florida International University, that diversity bridge that collapsed? It killed 6 people. No doubt there are women, including women of color, who could build a bridge that doesn't collapse. But when you go to Tackle magazine, they write, these days, we live in a world in which diversity is the goal rather than competence. Boy, that's putting it mildly. The magazine says, in the months prior to the bridge collapse, Florida International University was awarded millions of federal dollars to diversify its STEM classes. So you diversify because that's more important than competency. Have we learned anything from the lethal collapse of the diversity bridge? Well, not at the University of Technology in Sydney, Australia.
Of Technology in Sydney is lowering the engineering entry bar for female school leavers. They can get into the course with 10 fewer ATAR points, and this is part of a plan to get more women to study engineering and consequently get into the engineering workforce. Engineering is a very male-dominated industry and workplace, and apparently that is a big turn-off for women wanting to study engineering in the first place. Is this the way to turn it round?
Look, it is. It's the old saying, if you can't see it, you won't be it. And women look at that sort of field and think, ooh. And I think a lot of people are sort of saying, oh, well, this means women are getting into the course who won't be able to do it. And that's simply not true. More than half of Australian students who enrol in bachelor courses do so without the right ATAR. There's a whole lot of other things universities do. So positive discrimination, we know it works, and it makes the industries better, it makes businesses better. So I think this is a really positive move.
Gareth, Dee's right. A number of universities allocate adjustment points based on disadvantage or illness predominantly, but this is the first time it's been based on gender. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a really good idea to try and encourage more women to study engineering fields, but I'm not 100% convinced that this will work. I think we'll need to wait 5, 6, 7 years to see if, in fact, it does boost the number of graduates who come through. I had a look at UTS's ATAR ranks already for engineering, and you can get into engineering at UTS if you want to study software or data engineering with an ATAR of about 72. Now, that is not some sort of insurmountable barrier. You can get into electrical engineering with an 82 or an 83. Now, they are not what I would call, it's not like, 97, 98% ATAR that you need to get into medicine or some law courses. So I just wonder whether, in fact,
By the way, all you engineers out there, the standards, the equivalents like an LSAT or whatever their exams are. They refer to them as their ATARs. So those are higher to get into medicine, lower to get into engineering. Yeah. So engineers, you're not nearly as smart as lawyers or doctors.
Academic requirements on the way in that are stopping women from engineering. I suspect there's probably other things going on. I actually suspect it's because most women don't want to be engineers. Now,
oh, how sexist of him. So they don't want to be engineers, but we want to try to get them to be engineers because we don't care about competency. We don't care about your aptitude. We don't care about your passion or whether or not you want to be an engineer. We just want you in the class. Yeah. I'm not going to finish the clip. I'm impatient. Yes, I'm impatient. And I'm bored with it already. But here's the bottom line. Whenever you start having a culture, whether it's this country, Australia, or anywhere else, that rejects merit in favor of political correctness, I don't think you can expect just bridges to fail. I think you can start expecting the culture to fail. You know, I thought America was a meritocracy, a constitutional republic where individuals raised to whatever heights of success, whatever heights of economic success, whatever it is that they wanted to achieve, that you could do that if you just tried hard enough. No, we want to dumb everything down now. We just want to make sure that we've got the right number of people of color, the right number of, well, when you consider genders, that's going to dilute the pool too. So you got to have the 37, 38 different genders in there. It's no longer a meritocracy. It's all about the rainbow and how pretty and diversified we are. Yeah, watch for bridges to start collapsing in another 10 years or so.
That's all, folks.